It took some time, but we do know when the Sabres will be hosting the Boston Bruins for Game 1. It will be Sunday at 7:30, and pregame coverage on Sunday will begin at noon, and will carry all the way to puck drop at 7:30. And for the latest leading up to Game 1, Paul Hamilton does have a piece up at our website, WGR550.com. And the other Sunday matchups, 3 p.m., Colorado hosts the Kings. 5:45, Montreal is at Tampa Bay, and then at 10, Utah at Las Vegas. The playoffs, though, do begin tomorrow with 3 games. 3 p.m., Ottawa at Carolina. 5:30, Dallas hosts Minnesota. And then at 8, the Flyers are at Pittsburgh. Big-time extension in the NFL. Will Anderson inks a 3-year, $150 million deal with the Houston Texans. $134 million of that is guaranteed, and it now gives Anderson the highest non-quarterback contract in NFL history. We do have a doubleheader today for the Bisons. They are at Rochester. Game 1 is in just about an hour at 4:05, and will be heard on our sister station, the Bet 1520. The Mets are underway at the Cubs. New York, though, is down 6-3 in the second. Yankees host the Royals at 7:05, and then out west, the Jays, they take on the Arizona Diamondbacks at 9:40. While in basketball, final playing games today, winners get the 8 seeds. 7:30, Orlando hosts Charlotte, and at 10, the Warriors are at Phoenix. Both, just like the last few days, will be on Amazon Prime. It's your Paddock Chevrolet Sports Update. Paddock Chevrolet with you for the extra mile since 1935. I'm Zach Jones for Western New York's Voice of the Fan, WGR.
My dad's not here right now. He's still at work. So I'm going to blast him.
Mike Schopp and the Bulldog.
I'm going to see if there's a clean version so that my parents and the people at my school will not get mad at me. We've got the spritzer filled with water just in case if stuff gets too fire. I'm going to set up the speaker and I'm going to listen to
Mike Schopp and the Bulldog.
I think this is the best
Mike Schopp
feature that I've heard in a long time. I think his flow is really good in it, and I like his aggressiveness on it, and
the Bulldog.
Put not enough effort in it. I think overall his flow was good, but I don't like that mumble rapping. That was my review of
Mike Schopp and the Bulldog.
Didn't need the spritzer. Wasn't fire enough. No spritzer for you. No spritzer.
You may be somebody that tunes in to this show with certain expectations, or even like a guess as to where we're going to start. I'd be, I don't know, a little bit embarrassed to tell you what I've been doing for most of the last 10 minutes, I think. I mean, it's not like it's not safe for work. This had better be safe for this job, at least. But a Twitter account called Nerding on NFL, which I follow because of, if not just last year, maybe other years, but the schedule release, which is in a few weeks in the NFL. It's not the hockey schedule. That's over now. We know the hockey schedule, so we can't talk about that as if there's anything dramatic about it. We know what it's going to be. It's fine. It was always going to be fine, and it's fine. But this site announced today that they are working hard on their schedule release grid, and I get a tingle when I read that. And then I even clicked on the tweet so you can see if anybody has commented, and somebody has commented with their mock schedule, and I'm just immersed in it. I am immersed in a fake 2026 NFL schedule. Why not be? Right? Life is short. Why shun something as incredible as this? Would you like the Ravens at the Bills on Monday night in week 1 to open the stadium? I'm fine with it. New coaches, the history between the two teams, last year, week 1, prime time. Would you like Buffalo at Minnesota on Sunday night in week 2? Great. It's all fake. I mean, imagine if it's actually right. Somebody just whipped it out and there it is, the whole thing's right. Would you like this? Would you like at New England in week 17 on Sunday night? All right. Well, I'm not going to dwell on this and bother you with the whole thing. You can find it for yourself, but that's where I was just, hanging out. Have you gotten your hatred for Boston up? Does it live with you all the time? Does it take no effort at all to get hatred for Boston up. I don't really want to be hating on cities and teams at this stage of my life, but this week it's come up. It's come back. Boston, just the mere mention of the city. The Patriots are back. All those Super Bowls, all that Bills drought existence. And now here we are again having to watch them in the Super Bowl this year. Boston and the 80s in hockey, or even the 70s. And even like the Bergeron Marchand teams that were always better than us, almost always better than us. It's, it's an easy underdog vibe. Now you have the Bruins coach talking about how they're bigger, and like he knows that you can measure that. That's not even a subjective thing, bigger. Stronger maybe, but not bigger. So he knows he's wrong. But what's he doing? He did say that at a press conference, we're bigger. What's he doing? He's easily proven wrong. Does he care? If you want to be a knight, act like a knight. If you want to be bigger, then say you're bigger. We are smaller than Boston, not in terms of average height of hockey players, but we are smaller than Boston. In a certain sense, it can't be denied. So we have that today. That helps, right? I've got friends who are fired up about, they think the Bruins coach maybe is dumb or just unaware, but I don't think he cares. He probably knows. Why wouldn't he? If anybody's going to know the size of players in hockey, would be hockey coaches. They would know that before we would normally. So it's just to be ignored. Oh, were you with us? Bulldog is not here again. Were you with us last week before the Masters when I got the email from Bet Online? Now, again, I want to say I like getting these emails, and I find a lot of them useful. The one that they send out before big events that claims to geotag Twitter, I just don't know that I believe it. When we talked about this before the Masters, they put out a map. It's always a map of North America or the U.S. and every state's favorite player or team based on what they claim they have seen on Twitter. So, for instance, before the Masters, Cameron Smith was New York's, apparently, favorite golfer for the Masters because he's from New York, which I've never once cared about that. It's also Long Island or New York City, and that's to me like a different planet. So, I mean, I don't know. But here's Bet Online with an email that says they are tracking things like Rory will win the Masters, Scotty Scheffler will win, like as if people really tweet like that, and they probably do. Bulldog's reply was that they're probably not even people, but I don't know, maybe. Here we've got this now for hockey. The map below, courtesy of Bet Online, is based on geotagged X data since April 13th. What's that? Monday? Tracking tweets, hashtags, and direct keyword phrases about who. I'm just going to write down direct keyword phrases so I can name a team that. That's just very 2026 jargon. Direct keyword phrases. Wow. I'm too old to name children that. If only I could still have time to do that. Direct keyword phrases about who fans think will win the NHL Stanley Cup. All right, well, this is someone that's never actually talked hockey. For example, quote, McDavid will finally get his cup, end quote, comma, quote, the Avs will win the Stanley Cup, end quote, period. 640,000 tweets were tracked. Find me one that actually says something even resembling the Avs will win the Stanley Cup. Anybody who is tweeting anything like that is doing so in a language I don't speak. I doubt, I mean, maybe like if your uncle is on Twitter and he's kind of new to it and he thinks like that's what you do with it, I have my doubts. The prediction map reads much more like a rooting interest map than the NBA counterpart, which I have not seen. That's partly due to fans having belief in their teams and upsets much more prevalent in the NHL playoffs due to a hot goalie. What? Nobody is tweeting about that? I mean, this is one of the rare times where I just don't buy this at all, but I'm happy to talk about it. Usually my filter is if I don't believe anything or I can't prove something, I just will never bring it up. And I don't know why this is the example I think of, but when the Sabres were in the Carolina series 20 years ago, and Tim Connolly missed the whole playoffs after getting injured in Ottawa, in Game 1 in Ottawa, hitting the head, or Game 2. He was incredible in Game 1. Game 2 right away, Peter Schaefer. And somehow the day of Game 7 in Carolina, people started to talk about Connolly playing. And I remember getting just like a lot tweets, if Twitter was a thing, I'm not sure it even was, but emails and like, why aren't you talking about Tim Connolly? And I'm just thinking like, because I don't have anybody that would know telling me that he's playing, and he didn't play and it just died. So like that's kind of how I roll. Like if it's something that I can't prove it or somebody that I think would know would tell me, then I'm just going to ignore it. Yet with this regular Bet Online email feature, I am excited to talk about it, even though I don't either believe it. I think I don't believe it. I just don't think people really talk like this. So we've got a map of U.S. and Canada and purportedly every state and province's favorite team in the playoffs. How many states are with the Sabres? 1. New York. Maybe we had a shot at Vermont, even New Hampshire, even perhaps New Jersey, but not to be, and that makes sense. Vermont, New Hampshire would be for the Bruins, probably. I can believe that. I mean, I guess I want to think that maybe somebody just drew up this map, but maybe not. Maybe they're actually using hundreds of thousands of tweets. So we don't get New England this time, and we don't get Jersey. Philadelphia is Jersey's team. Pennsylvania is for the Penguins, but the Flyers get New Jersey, Delaware, what is that? Maryland, West Virginia. Carolina gets the Carolinas, and most of it's predictable. Ontario is for Ottawa. I don't believe it. I think Ottawa is for Ottawa. I think probably Toronto and the vast area and places that is and are Ontario, would it really be like Senators country? I doubt it. Who would Toronto be rooting for? Maybe the Sabres. I mean, that's a rival. So are the Senators. So are the Canadians. Maybe the Oilers would be the winner in a poll of Toronto fans for the Cup. Or maybe it would be an American team because you'd want the Leafs to be the team to finally break the Canadian Cup drought. Utah is for Utah. Frank, the story is Utah, and that makes sense. California is for LA. Most of it seems to sort of make sense, except for me, one more, that 19 states apparently are with the Avalanche. And that's too many states. Ohio. Ohio is Avalanche country. There are people in Ohio tweeting, what's the line? Quote, the Avs will win the Stanley Cup. Really? Are there 2 people in Ohio that have ever tweeted that? Is there one? I don't know. 19 states. Colorado, Nebraska, Kansas, Wyoming, Montana. Bulldog can report back on Tuesday. Oh, everyone we talk to, the Avs, undeniable. Idaho, Washington, Oregon, New Mexico, Alaska, Hawaii, Colorado Avalanche people, Missouri, Illinois, Chicago. Avs? Why? Kentucky, Tennessee, Indiana, Michigan, Ohio. I'm just working on my map skills. Manitoba. Are there maybe players on the Avs from these places that would explain any of this? Possibly. And you're right not to care. If I were, a normal, well-adjusted person, I would not care. I care because I think it's just probably made up. What have you seen about enough about the map. What have you seen about the matchup in the last couple of days? We've had a few days since we knew it would be the Bruins for the Sabres. We had the Marco Sturm quote, Boston is bigger. They're not, but, cool. Good try. Another one is, where did I read this? Ian McMillan, I think, Sports Illustrated. I think he wrote something that resembled this, at least. Boston is the worst team in the playoffs. The worst team in the East. I mean, okay, I can buy it. He liked Philadelphia. He did a series-by-series, I like reading him, a series-by-series prediction column, and he liked Philadelphia more because the Flyers have been really hot. And that's not, for me, something that is predictive, necessarily, at least, going into the postseason. You'd rather be, in good form than not, but too many times has it not gone the way you would think. So I really don't care about that. But he basically said Philadelphia has been, this since whenever, halfway through the season, or even maybe more recently than that. And the Bruins have not. And okay, I'm listening. I've read how most people are going to say this. Boston has a significant edge in goal. I talked to Andrew Filipponi today on his FanDuel show that airs on Sundays. And, I think you would have to get, in a tail of the tape, you'd have to give the Bruins the nod in goal because of Swayman versus Luukkonen. I think you would have to do that. But I just refuse to care. I just don't want to ever make a hockey prediction based on goaltending. It seems like a complete waste of time, if not also money. Sometimes an edge that a team has in net, in even a 7-game series, let alone a whole regular season, that's different. But in a short series, sometimes that will come to the surface. Too many years, though, and again, I admit, I'm sort of shaking off the rust, because for a lot of these years in the last decade, I just almost have not even wanted to care about the hockey playoffs. Like, I'm just not. It's too upsetting to think about how it used to be and what the Sabres are when they're in and what Buffalo is like when they're in, and now it's just sort of a complete afterthought. I didn't want to watch Florida and Tampa in the playoffs. People are different. If you love hockey like Bulldog does, he's watching that game. He's watching that series. I'm not. I'm watching baseball. I don't even want to acknowledge it. But when we did have, or, maybe you were this way all along, like Bulldog, but for me, when we did have the Sabres in the playoffs and it was interesting, this was always a big point of mine, is I just don't want to base, this is like post-Hasek, I guess, whenever we became enlightened about how goaltending really is in the NHL, which is to say you have a very small number of difference makers and then you have everybody else. And, no disrespect, but if you take Luukkonen, that's the point. He could be the exact example you'd want for this point, because he's had good or really good seasons and he's had others. And what does it tell you about him? That can be a real question. What is Luukkonen? What he is good enough to play in the league, to be a number one on a good team. Next year could be different. Last year was different. 2 years ago was more like this. Year before that was more like last year. What does it tell you? Does he get good and then go bad and then get good? And then, why would that even make sense? I think you can have streaks. You can have streaks of confidence and self-doubt and different things, but that's not going to account for what you see in the swings of a goaltender year to year. It could be part of it, but it's never going to be all of it. So, all right, you tell me how it works. I think how it works is there's so much randomness in it. This year he's on a team that defensively has figured out a lot, and they started to win, and he started to win, and Alex Lyon started to win. Do this with Alex Lyon if you want. And then you had good vibes, and you had a believable contender. And anytime you can invest that much more energy and focus on a team you can actually believe in, then you probably should, unless you crack under the pressure, but I don't think that's most professionals, then you probably should show better performance. I would say that, if that even sort of makes sense. It won't fit on a hockey card about Luukkonen. But Boston would have to get the check mark in net, and I just don't care. I don't want to pick any series based on who the goalie is. And you don't have Hellebuck in these playoffs, and you don't have Shesterkin in these playoffs. You don't have Henrik Lundqvist anymore. I don't know. Vasilevsky, how did the Sabres do against him? Great. So I'm not looking at, maybe you are. I'm not telling you what to think. But for me, I'm not looking at the playoffs at all about like who everybody's goalie is and what kind of form they're in or anything like that. I'll take my chances with Luukkonen, who, even if he is the second best goalie in the series, has had a very nice season. So anybody else see anything different that has you fired up for this series, round one, game one on Sunday night? We don't have Bulldog. We will have Sam Panayotovich coming up, as usual, on a Friday afternoon. And Sam's excited to talk about playoff odds. Again, talking to Andrew on his FanDuel show, he had the Sabres at minus 185, I think it was, right near there. I said yesterday I saw 175, right in that same range, to win the series. And that's pretty healthy. It's not, the way he framed a question to me about it is like, it's not prohibitive. It's not, say, Tampa, which is a bigger favorite than the Sabres are for their series against Montreal, which you could find surprising, I guess. I mean, they tied in the standings, but I would have a tough time. We'll see what Sam says. I would have a tough time betting Tampa at minus 230 because the Canadians ran the race with them even, all the way to the end, and beat them twice late in the season. I'm not interested in home ice. Home teams win 54% of games. Not a big enough edge to care about. Don't care about goaltending. That's where Tampa would have its box checked too with Vasilevsky, maybe against anybody. So I would not want to bet Tampa at that price. But Andrew said he likes the Sabres at minus 180 or minus 185. And I can get there too. I joked to him it might be the first time I've ever been on his show and picked Buffalo. Because he calls me and he calls Bulldog a lot during the NFL season. And we talk about maybe a Sunday night game with the Bills or something. Like, I don't know. I had a tough time last year buying into the Bills. But I'm not having that tough a time buying into the Sabres. I admit my heart is obviously with them. But we'll talk to Sam. He also has odds on player to lead the series in goals. That's good. I think Quinn is interesting. Is that crazy? You know, we love long shots. We love to lose, right? Bulldog says it. We always say it. We love to lose bets. But Quinn at plus 4,500. Too bad they don't have shootouts or else, well, that would be a shorter price. But he's fun to think about. Norris, different non-Tage Thompson Sabres players. Got a lot for you today. Sammy P., Tyler Dunn. Tyler has a long piece out on Joe Brady from having talked to Brady. It's funny, the timing, because today there's an athletic piece on Sean McDermott. McDermott did an interview with an athletic reporter. I read it, and it said that he might be planning to do some media around the draft. I mean, the draft is next week, so you might see Sean McDermott on, some network or another in the coming days. But McDermott talking about moving to Charlotte and just kind of what he's doing with his life, something I might want to get into with Tyler, but Tyler's piece is on the current coach of the Bills, Joe Brady. Also in the 5 o'clock hour, two great hockey guests. Kevin Oklubja, who I have known for many years but have not talked to in a long time, in Rochester, covered the Amherst when he and I were friends and colleagues at the Democrat Chronicle there. Kevin's been on the show many times. Get his perspective on the playoffs, the Sabres' chances, and everything else. And then also E.J. Radick from NHL Network coming up today as well. If you want to jump in, it's going to be tight, but we'll see what works out. I mean, 4:30 is good. Maybe a little bit between Sam and Tyler. 803-0550, if you didn't know, is the number here. Sabres and Bruins, 7:30 p.m. Sunday, Game 1. Sammy P. after the break. Bulldog is off. This is Mike Schopp on WGR.
In the past, Lindy was not really a big matchup guy. He did his thing, so we'll see where it goes. Maybe he does it different in the playoffs, but we don't really care. We know how I have to play. We're going to be ready to go. We're excited. We are bigger, stronger. We are more physical. We just have to be smart, but we're going to go after them. And whoever comes in first line, second, I don't really care. We try to play our game, not their game.
Okay. Bruins coach Marco Sturm. I did like a couple of other comments I heard him make, not just from a, as a hockey fan recently about the Bruins and the Sabres, and doesn't seem like he's necessarily spinning or anything like that. I look forward to the series. I look forward to the talking. With Lindy, it's been a long time, but we've had some fun with him playing mind games or trying to with other coaches, and who knows what we'll get here. Buffalo-Boston, Game 1 Sunday night. I'm Mike Schopp. Bulldog is away until Tuesday. I bet he loved the schedule. He was worried that early Saturday would be Game 1 and that he would have to miss it. What he got instead was late Sunday, which I never thought would be even possible. Get the Western teams in, whatever, but the Avs are playing Sunday at like 1 or early in the afternoon. I'm not sure if it's 1, but first game of the day on Sunday is Colorado, and the Sabres are Sunday night. Okay, cool. Works for me, too. With me now on the Western Hotline is Sam Panayotovich, who I'm not sure what his schedule is anymore, because I think from Twitter, once again, he's on a golf course in Florida grilling meat or something. So I don't know, Sam, how did the hockey schedule work out for you as a viewer?
Well, it's just great, Mike. I'm going to have some corned beef for dinner. We got the cabbage and the potatoes and the carrots. Those are in the oven pretty soon, and got about 4 slabs of corned beef to celebrate a random Friday in Florida. But then I do, unfortunately, I go back to reality next week. I go back to Boston on Monday. But it's been nice to be down there. This is like my 8th day, to be honest. A little Floridaed out, but I mean, you can't argue with the sunshine and the water, and obviously there's been some alcohol involved, but yeah, just enjoying it down here, and we start ramping up for NFL draft next week.
I thought maybe you had moved there the way things were looking, but not exactly. You live in Boston. What are the Bruins to you? You're not a native, but during the football season, you talk about people talking about the Patriots, you listen to sports radio. What's your perspective on what the Bruins are there at this point in time and how they rate, et cetera?
So I sort of liken, and I'm glad you asked, and obviously you didn't, prep me with this question. I think the Boston Bruins are very similar to the Wisconsin Badgers basketball program in the sense that they're very slow, they're kind of methodical, they don't really make a lot of mistakes, but they don't also have the most talent. Like they get by with the little stuff, the effort, the plays in the corner, stuff like that. They're very, what's a word? Gritty. They're very gritty. Like they definitely don't have more talent than Buffalo. And obviously you played that clip coming back, and the head coach of the Bruins was like, yeah, we're much more physical. You realize he didn't say we're better, and he didn't say we're better at scoring goals, because they're not. So I think the key to the series is, can Buffalo play its game the way it's supposed to, or does it get trapped in this cat and mouse game where now you got your best players are trying to lay big hits and get away from their game? I mean, hockey's a very emotional game at times, and I covered the Blackhawks from 2012 to 2018, and that was the toughest team to throw off their game, because they stuck to their game plan and they did what they were supposed to do. Oftentimes in the playoffs, these younger teams with not a lot of experience, the moment is too big for them. And I think that's the biggest challenge, because Boston knows how to win in the playoffs, at least a series or two here and there. The question for this Buffalo team is, can they stick to what got them there? And it sounds so simplistic, but really that's the key.
So Wisconsin, then, is that a team that, when the brackets come out, the analysts all talk like, this is not a team you want to play in the tournament? Or is that a team you want to play in the tournament?
No, they were better when they had NBA talent, like
yes.
The years when they had Frank Kaminsky and Sam Decker. I mean, that team went all the way to the title game That was like 2015, I think, when they played Duke. But historically, if you're a 1 seed or a 2 seed, you don't want to see Wisconsin as a 7 or a 10 or an 8 or a 9. Yeah, I think that's fair. But at the same time, Wisconsin also lost this year to High Point. So I think that was a pretty good comparison. I mean, they're certainly not loaded with talent. This is not the Colorado Avalanche by any means or the Carolina Hurricanes. It's a team you have to avoid getting in their style of play. And if they do that, they'll be just fine. I'm looking at the series prices right now in Vegas, and most books have Buffalo about minus 170. So, you're supposed to win the series. Doesn't mean you're going to. But, the Sabres are favored to win a playoff series. Stop the presses.
How about that? Sam, I was more asking just about like how the Bruins, popularity or whatever the word would be for this, thinking about, like you said, like I said, thinking about how you've talked about Patriots fans in your midst. Like, are the Bruins hot right now? This is not a team that was supposed to be that good. They not quite sneak into the playoffs. Like, what do your friends think of the Bruins?
Oh, they love them. I mean, it's a very specific fan base. All the fans in Boston are loyal, but there's different kinds of fans. I mean, I think your Red Sox fans are mostly like a lot of Red Sox fans are Bruins fans, and then like the Patriots are their own thing because football's such a beast. But it's not like like in New York when the Yankees fans are all Rangers fans and then the Mets fans are Islanders fans. Like it's not really that. But I think like. Put it this way. I used to live across the street from the Garden, and the Celtics crowd was always like a more buttoned up, like more corporate crowd, maybe have a seltzer or two. And then like the Bruins crowd, they get off the train with like whiskey in a brown bag, like that's the vibe. Like they're very like blue collar, they drop their R's when they say ka and lobster and all that. Like it's a much more local, like infested team. Like the Bostonians that love the Bruins are diehard Bruins fans. And I'll tell you what, they go no matter what, win or lose. It's not like the Cubs. When the Cubs aren't good, nobody goes. Like the Bruins fans are very loyal, and that's a very loud building. And you'll be able to hear that on TV for game number 3. I mean, assuming the Bruins are not completely getting blasted, like 4-0 game 1, 5-0 game 2. Imagine there's something to fight for in game 3. The Sabres they're gonna have a tough test in game 3 and game 4 for sure.
How many games have you been to?
Oh, geez. I mean, when I was at Nessa, we did the pregame from there. So
many.
I don't know. Yeah, 100, easy.
Nice. Sam Panayotovich on the Western Hotline. By the way, do you want me to send you the questions in advance in future?
No. I'd much rather go rogue.
Good. So the playoffs overall, for me, and I sort of see myself, I tend to be more contrarian about the Bills and the Sabres, and we've talked about that with the Bills before. I'm a tougher sell, I think, on Buffalo than I might be if I lived, somewhere else. But minus 170, I think I would pay that for them in this series based on this matchup. I don't think Boston is very strong. What are a couple of your plays, either for this series? I know you sent me a text with, I love this one, by the way, leading goal scorers in the series, players from each team, or just other series in the playoffs.
Sure. So I think if you have, assuming you do, listening right now, you have the ability to parlay some series, I think a really good bet, and I know people want to bet a little to win a lot, but if you want to wheel the Penguins to win and the Sabres to win, I think that's a pretty good bet, Mike. And what we do here is you take that minus 170 on Pittsburgh and the minus 170 on Buffalo, and rather than lay the 170 to win 100, we bet them together and we turn it into an underdog. Now, you need both to happen, but a Pittsburgh Penguins series winner and a Buffalo Sabres series winner comes out to about plus 150. I think that's a really good bet. I do believe they both win. The other teams are okay. I'm not a big Bruins guy this year, and I think Pittsburgh's a dangerous team in the East. And I'm not a Pittsburgh guy by any stretch, but like the vets they got, I mean, they could have 3 or 4 Hall of Famers. They're all healthy. If they get good goal, as is often the case, they could win a couple series. But I mean, think about it: Crosby, Malkin, Erik Karlsson. Like they could win a couple series. But in terms of bets that I've made, I definitely like Buffalo to win, Pittsburgh to win, and that's plus 150. And I was looking at Jason Zucker to lead the series in goals this first series, 8-1. I don't think that's a bad idea. Obviously, the goals are very hit or miss sometimes, and most people are going to talk about Thompson and Pasternak, and those two guys are going to get a lot of the bets, but they're also like 3-4-1. Jason Zucker or Alex Tuck to lead the series in goals at 8-1, 10-1. Those are interesting to me, at least.
I like it. When you sent me that, it was the first time I looked at it, this picture of the goal-scoring leader odds, and a couple other names I think are interesting on the Sabres. One would be Norris at plus 2,200. He's come on, Sam. Special teams, too. Like, he's a player that's been a great goal scorer in his career. This year was different for him when he came back from injury, and he was succeeding more as a playmaker. But sniped one on Wednesday night in game 82. I think that's a nice price for him. And a deeper dive would be Quinn at both Sabres at 45 plus 4,500. Unfortunately for that, there's no shootouts because he's been great in shootouts. But he's also somebody with a nose for the net. So if you wanted to gamble a little bit bigger, those are two names. I think for Boston, Pasternak is the name, but he's just too short.
Yeah, and obviously, if you're going to bet a guy down the board, some of those guys you just rattled off, like Norris at 22-1, it's going to be maddening when Norris has, 3 goals through 4 games, and then Pasternak or Thompson has a hattie in game 4, right? It's just like you had a good bet, but then one of those guys had an outburst. I don't know if I sent you the hat trick bet. They're doing this at DraftKings. They're letting you they're putting an over-under on the amount of hat tricks in the series, which is, look, you can, like I said, you can bet on anything these days, Mike. So the over-under for hat tricks in the entire series is 0.5.
Yeah.
So you either get one or you don't, and the over half a hat trick is plus 180. I don't feel like I should get a little bit more than plus 180, but the problem with that is that, like, most people that bet that prop are going to bet the yes. Like, they don't want to bet against the hat trick because that's no fun. The value is probably on minus 230 that we don't get a hat trick, but that's an interesting market because, like the bettor is wired to believe in goals and points and touchdowns and all that. Nobody wants to bet under on hat tricks, but I think under half a hat trick is probably a good bet. Wink, wink.
Yeah, and I could never do it. I'm right with you on that. Just give me the plus money side. 1 hat trick. Somebody scores 2, and they just feed him. Goalies are getting pulled earlier in games. That guy just dumps in a hat trick goal into an empty net. Yeah, easy to talk yourself into that. Anything out west you like?
So I bet a little Dallas at 6-1 to win the West. I text, as you know, I text with bookmakers in Vegas all the time, and I got 3 different texts from 3 different bookmakers at 3 different places, and they all said the same thing. And I hate when that happens, but it's true. They all said the West is wide open. And I'm like, well, if it's wide open, like, these guys are telling me, like, don't bet the favorite. So I was looking at the board, and obviously Colorado's favored, and they're very, very good. But I landed on Ottinger, basically. I think, this is his time. Dallas has probably never been better in the last 5 years. So I looked at them. There's 5-1, there's 6-1 in the market. I think that's a decent bet given the price. Okay. I'm not doing Edmonton. How do you feel about Edmonton? I mean, can they make another deep playoff run again?
Yes.
I don't know, man. You think they can?
I bet they're not a great price because they're Edmonton and what's happened the last 2 years, but I love the path. Anaheim in the first round, okay. Maybe Vegas in the second. I think Utah is interesting in the West, but maybe Vegas in the second, okay. Those teams are not better than the Oilers at their best. And then if I get to the semis, I mean, I could even hedge, but I'm probably an upset. What would Edmonton be against the Avs or Dallas? They'd be plus 150 to 200 maybe in that series. Yeah. I'd be that close.
Yeah, but the problem is, like, if you're a bookmaker, you don't want to give McDavid away at 2-1. I mean, you're in the ballpark for sure. I would guess a Colorado Edmonton series price is probably like minus 185 on the favorite, and then the dog is like plus 165 or whatever. But you're right there for sure. I'm not trying to say that you're wrong. I just, man, like 2 Game 7s in the final in a row. Like, that's a lot of hockey, man. I mean, it is. It's just, again, as somebody who covered the Blackhawks, like, they were really, really good, 13, 14, 15, 16, and then it just all fell apart because these guys were just out of gas. So we'll see what happens. But I think given the fact that the bookmakers think the West is wide open, you can take a shot and you just pick your horse, whether it's Vegas or Dallas or Edmonton or Minnesota. Just pick the one you like and see what happens.
You're right on the Oilers' point. They just don't play good teams in the first 2 rounds. So that's where I'm leaning. All right.
I get it.
Anything else? Baseball, hoops, NBA playoffs? What's one more thing on your mind?
The White Sox will kill me this year, Mike. That's the last thing. They will kill me. They're like 29th or 30th in every offensive category. And I was on the station, say bet the over, bet over 66.5, and I'm trying to stay optimistic, Mike, but it's pretty bad. It's pretty bad.
Yeah, that wasn't supposed to happen. The White Sox inability to hit.
No,
that wasn't supposed to happen.
No. I would like them to be better than 29th and 30th in every important category. That would be crucial if we get there. You know, Sneaky Joe's starting to fall off the wagon again, and just. We got to string some wins together on the south side of Chicago.
I'll be rooting for you. I have a little piece of that, too. Thank you, Sam. Have a safe trip home.
All right. Thanks, Mike. See you.
Sam Panayotovich, Chicken Dinner, our longtime Friday afternoon guest. Immersed, I might say, in the NHL playoffs and the odds and the different plays. Tyler Dunn coming up at 4. He's recently posted at golongtd.com a long piece on Joe Brady. So we'll talk about Brady and the upcoming NFL draft, everything going on in the NFL with Tyler. Later, Kevin O'Klubja, EJ Raddick, both weighing in on the NHL playoffs and the Sabres-Bruins series. Bulldog is off. This is Mike Schopp. Thanks for listening to WGR.
We've been living in sin so long, all the feels are gone. Fella stopped me on the street last night, said everything's alright. Roller coaster, make it through the day upright. It seems your meal ticket is gone, but life goes on. I could never imagine something better. Yeah, right. Now you're cooking on high heat in the your timeline on the roller coaster of life. Oh, you seem to easily forget how to place your bet. When everyday life gets you down, you gotta steal the crown. Got to own it. Don't bitch and moan about it, please. God forbid you scrape your knees, and it's nothing to sneeze at. Oh, I've told you over and over again. You gotta get both hands around it and make your own plans. Roller coaster, it's taking over. It's about time. Oh, sing your highline on the roller coaster of life. You've got to all choose your timeline with the roller coaster of life. Roller coaster. I want to go down the rabbit hole, down the rabbit hole of life. And now it's about to leave. Oh, roller coaster. Roller coaster.
About a minute here, and then we'll get into some football with Tyler Dunn. To fill out the goal-scoring leaders from Boston Buffalo, the upcoming series from FanDuel, as I was just talking about with Sam Panayotovich, here's the Sabres list. Give you an idea about what's expected, at least by people in the betting market. Thompson plus 350. This is just Sabres. Zucker plus 800. Tuck 800. So 8-1. Doan 13-1. Norris 22-1. I like that. Dahlin 40-1. Quinn 45-1. I'd rather bet Quinn. Dahlin gets a couple through on the power play, though. Maybe you're live. McLeod at plus 6,000. Krebs as well, same number. Benson 65. And then Samuelson 150-1. Let me see a screenshot if you are that brave. He has scored this year. Tyler Dunn after this break on WGR.
It'll be 7:30 on Sunday. That is when the Buffalo Sabres will host the Boston Bruins for Game 1 of their Stanley Cup playoff series. Our pregame coverage on Sunday will begin at noon. And for the latest, heading into Game 1, Paul Hamilton does have pieces up at our website, WGR550.com. The other Sunday matchups, 3 p.m., Colorado hosts the Kings. 5:45, Montreal is at Tampa Bay. And then at 10, Utah at Las Vegas. The playoffs, though, will begin tomorrow afternoon with 3 games. 3 p.m., Ottawa is at Carolina. 5:30, Dallas hosts Minnesota. And then at 8 o'clock, it's the Flyers. They are at Pittsburgh. Big extension in the NFL. Will Anderson inks a 3-year, $150 million deal with the Texans. $130 million of that is guaranteed. And this does now give Anderson the highest non-quarterback contract in NFL history. Doubleheader today for the Bisons. They're at Rochester. Game 1 is starting here in the next few minutes, and that game can be heard on our sister station, the Bet 1520. The Mets are already underway at the Cubs. New York is down 7-3 in the 6th. Yankees host the Royals at 7:05, and then out west, the Jays, they take on the Diamondbacks at 9:40. And then we've also got some playoff basketball tonight. It's the final play-in games. The winners get the 8 seeds. 7:30, Orlando hosts Charlotte, and at 10, the Warriors are at Phoenix, and these both will be on Amazon Prime. That's your Paddock Chevrolet Sports Update. Paddock Chevrolet with you for the extra mile since 1935. I'm Zach Jones from Western New York's Voice of the Fan, WGR.
It's Mike Schopp and the Bulldog.
All right, what's the report from outside?
I was outside for maybe 3 minutes. I counted 8 Q-tips. It's got to be one person that just throws their Q-tips out the window when they're done using them in their cars.
It's Mike Schopp.
One person?
More than one person using Q-tips and throwing them outside?
I don't think I use 8 Q-tips in a year.
I think I've never used 8 Q-tips.
And the Bulldog.
What the hell is going on out there? I don't think I want to work in a place where people like roll their windows down if they're using Q-tips for Lord knows what and just throw them on the ground.
Well, you do.
What, is it the 70s?
Oh, that's not very nice.
It's Mike Schopp and the Bulldog.
Driving on the highway 65 miles an hour. I get a little left in my soda from the fast food drive. Out the window. That was the 70s. Who gives an F about anything?
Throw a burrito out the window.
Nothing matters. 2025, what are you doing?
On WGR.
Throwing Q-tips out of your car.
Sports Radio 550.
I don't know if I believe that about the 70s. Bulldog was there. Did people really just, Anchorman, the guy throws a burrito. Did people really just throw things out their window? If Tyler Dunn were old enough, you know he would have taken note. For as focused as Tyler is on people leaving their shopping carts out by their cars in the parking lot and then driving off, that would have that Q-tip, that might have spoken to you, that Q-tip thing, because you're big on decorum of this sort, I believe.
Yes. Oh, I could have listened to the Q-tip dissection there for a half hour. Because for me, I go to the floss and toss. Who are these people with the little flossing devices? They're everywhere. I've moved on from the shopping carts. We got to fight a new battle here. the floss and toss, that person needs to be jailed, prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. And then, to me, it's deplaning decorum, chivalry, if you will.
Yes.
People who do not deplane by row, who just budge ahead to save themselves 1.8 seconds onto the next gate. That's probably 10 years behind bars, I think.
The floss and toss, that's that little stick with the piece of dental floss across the top. I see.
They're everywhere.
They're all over. They're all over.
These people just throw those
parking lots and picnic areas all over the world. This is my second guest already today who lives in Boston, I think. Tyler Dunn. We had Sam Panayotovich, although I'm not sure you're Boston Hills. Ha ha ha. Right, good one. But you're
in here now. We're down in Salamanca, Ellicottville.
Oh, you're out of Boston.
That's right.
Okay.
Back down to the country.
Okay.
The real country.
Unlike Boston. Yes, just playing around with the Sabres, playing the Bruins this week. How have you found, before we get into Joe Brady and your recent work, the area, given, does it extend as far as where you live with what's, the excitement about the Sabre season?
Oh, hell yeah. This is unbelievable. We, as a 90s kid, this is what you grew up on. I can still remember, for me, it was when they went to the Goat Head, Derek Plant, from whatever, the blue line, Ron Tugnut giving up a bad goal. He stood on his head that night, by the way. I'm sure Bulldog remembers, too. That Steve Shields, Ron Tugnut battle. I mean, I remember staying up with Dad. If you're going to stay up, though, for a night sports game, I still remember Dad, you made sure you had a nap earlier. Yeah, I had to take a nap back from school, and then, you could stay up for all those games. And, when the foot was in the crease, so that's 99, a couple years later, I didn't see it at the moment. I remember staying up, and I said, Dad, what's that woman doing on the ice? I was hallucinating. He said it was probably just Darian Hatcher, and then I went to bed and I missed that. But it was. I mean, this is incredible. You got a whole generation of fans that only know losing hockey. I feel like we're going to talk Joe Brady and Bills in football, but I mean, it feels like a hockey town. I mean, when the Sabres are good, I mean, the city, all of Western New York is just electric.
I can't miss an opportunity to force in a story about that night against the Brett Hull goal or no goal against Dallas. That was my father's 50th birthday, and I was also at a wedding that afternoon in Rochester, and then going to the game on a credential with a plane ticket to Dallas early the next morning had the Sabres won. And I had not been to Dallas. I've still never been to Dallas, but that was like, well, I had a busy Saturday with the wedding, and I'm not sure if I even saw my dad, but that was the date. Bulldog got married literally that day. Anyway, I didn't even know him then. So I'm in the building, and it gets to be going to the third overtime, and I'm like, I'm going to have to leave before this game ends, maybe, if I'm going to have any chance of making that flight, because I did not do any packing. That's still me, but I wasn't prepared to go thinking that I would have time, after I got home. But now it's 1 a.m. and I'm running out of time. So I told myself, this is it. If the game goes to another overtime after this one, I can't afford to stay. And it didn't. And I have to admit, when Dallas scored, I was a little bit relieved, Tyler, because I didn't have to leave that game early. I didn't have to pack now. And okay, well, this is a huge bummer, but at least I don't have to do these other things. That's June 19th, 1999 for me. You were how old at that time?
I mean, I would have been 12 years old.
Oh, wow. Big age difference.
Yeah.
Bigger than I thought. Well,
but I can remember Gary Bettman as he chest out, proud as could be, strutting on it. How does Gary Bettman screw the Sabres over? That'd be a good segment for you guys.
This year?
I mean, a puck to the side of the net. There's going to be something new here. They'll concoct.
I think probably, if you're asking seriously, I think probably what could happen here is that, just is a little bit stereotypical, but that Boston is just a real bully. And that can be advantageous in hockey. We've seen it many times over the years. You can get away with that. They're not going to call everything on you. So that's what the lesser team would often do, I think, or want to do. And, the Bruins have a certain reputation for that. If you can't really beat them honest, you just sort of take them out. And whether we blame Gary Bettman for that, if it happens, hopefully it won't come to that. But that's what I could see. I could envision that in this series.
Yeah. Bettman's a floss and tosser, no doubt.
With Tyler Dunn. So, this excellent long piece about Joe Brady taking over the Bills. Before we get into him and what you learned about him from sitting with him for what probably was quite a while, what did you think of the move when they made it?
Good question. I was surprised, bordering on stunned, too. Like, I think you interview 9 candidates, and it was extensive, exhaustive. Coaches from all backgrounds, a quarterback thrown in there, Brian Dable back in Western New York. I don't know. I guess I saw the Joe Brady interview. It was right out of the chute because you have him in your building. I just assumed, like most people, okay, yeah, he's there. You might as well talk to him. And he's interviewing for the Raiders job and the Ravens job. And, yeah, I mean, I was definitely shocked that, the approval rating, if you look at few polls that were out there, it was in the single digits. I mean, like I wrote in the thing, it was fans basically acted like they got a new pair of socks on Christmas morning if those socks were, doused and washed in the urinal trough at Old Rick Stadium. It was not met with much applause, but I think you hear from Joe Brady in that introductory press conference, and maybe the locals started to change their tune a little. And I wanted to sit down with him because, hell, I mean, who is Joe Brady? We see, the play caller, and, he doesn't say much at his press conferences. He even joked, like, I'm the worst person ever at the podium because I just want to protect my guys. I don't really want to give anything away. I just want to take all the blame, which is refreshing as well. So I said, you know what, let's sit down and just see where the conversation goes. Next thing you know, 2 hours pass. His assistants texted him like, hey, Joe, you got to get back, man. You got a meeting.
I like the story you told about him when he was a football player growing up and how he jumped into a game upon an injury even though he hadn't had his name called. And I wonder, I don't know if he would how he would handle that, or it's the pros. It probably isn't the kind of thing that happens anyway. But just sort of what kind of coach is he going to be, Tyler, and is it going to be different being a head coach? The Bills said, was it Brandon Beane, I think, who said just like the CEO aspect of things, he was impressed with from Brady when they were interviewing him. Is he going to be different as a head coach?
Yes, and that would be my number one takeaway from this conversation, Mike, is, I think outside looking in, you see an in-house, quote-unquote, candidate get the job. He's been there 4 years. You think you know everything you need to know about the guy. But when you really learn more about Joe Brady, he is a sharp contrast to his predecessor where it matters most. And start right there, like with that seminal moment in his own football career. So he's growing up as a quarterback. His dad was hard as hell on him. He had some funny stories down those lines. But he has basically throws out his shoulder, dead arm he called it, where he kind of just threw with all arm, not enough lower body. Even to this day, can't really throw a football that great. So he switches to wide receiver, and he kind of sees the writing on the wall at a summer tournament, a summer camp into that junior year, which is when you really have to impress colleges. They go 5 wide, and he's not even part of that formation. So, he didn't transfer. He figured, all right, I'll just stay ready in that first game. And we're talking Broward County here. This is maybe the best high school football anywhere in the country.
Mm-hmm.
A ton of guys come from there. Geno Smith is the quarterback at a rival high school for him back then. But a player gets hurt, and it's definitely not Joe Brady's turn to go in, but he just runs on the field anyway. Doesn't think twice, just goes. Catches a pass, catches another pass, and basically, he isn't sitting in this seat as the Bills head coach. He doesn't think if he doesn't feel that instinct to just go. Now, the story gets crazier. He's right up there in the county in receiving, and he's getting interviewed by a TV station in Miami, and then boom, he can't even walk on his feet out of bed. He falls out the next morning, and because he has a staph infection. Yeah. The paramedic tells him on the way to the hospital, hey, you might lose your leg. So it's like, holy hell, what's going on here? And loses 15 pounds. He's in the hospital for a couple weeks, and so many moments where it all could have come crumbling down, kind of blended with, him taking charge. So to answer your question, that's who he is. He doesn't overthink. He doesn't overanalyze. For Sean McDermott's positives, which are many, cleaning up the building and building a winner, bringing back some respectability, all of that. He is an overthinker. I've sat down with Sean. He pulled out the playoff pamphlet, here's our game plan into the 2024 postseason, has everything mapped out, every scenario. But some coaches are able to just, boom, make a decision. A minute and a half left, 4th down. What do we do here? You got to have that in you. And I think it's fair to say that Sean McDermott in those key moments, 9 years, didn't. And Joe, time and time again, from high school to college to the pros, so many examples of just, being instinctive, not thinking twice, sleeping on a concrete soft carpet at a coaching convention, looking for a job. There's so much to his life that you see why they went this direction.
The Joe Brady profile from Tyler Dunn at golongtd.com. On McDermott, by the way, I read the Athletic piece on him. He did a lengthy interview as well recently. And, I don't mean this to be critical, but to what you said about him and maybe his process, which is a word he, brought to light many times as the Bills coach, starting from when he took over. He's got this whole thing now about just sort of trying to be better in life. Not that he wasn't that way before, but it's interesting what he's doing this offseason. Less football, but he's got, maybe you read it, this office where he's got volumes of, I don't know what it is, takes, plays, whatever. Just super well, what'd you say, overthinker? You know, I can be called that too, but just really thorough. Maybe that's a nicer word for it. And, you know, I think Tyler, with regard to Brady, his obviously his thing isn't going to have to be to clean up anything with the Bills. He's got to get the ball in the end zone. He's got to figure out ways. That already was his job. And the Bills for the last couple of years have been kind of a quandary in this way because they've had high-scoring seasons, but we don't always like their talent or their method into doing what they're doing. So I wonder what he'll have this year that's different. I mean, I guess the draft is a big point in time in that, and that's next week. What he can do this year to elevate their offense.
Yeah, I mean, if we're talking X's and O's and just what we see on Sundays, I think it is going to be very different too. And I get it. Like it's easy to just blame the fired coach for everything. But Sean McDermott did a lot of really good things, but also he was the one in charge of game plans. If we start on offense, where if the edict from above was okay, we've got Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow. He'd make it clear to Joe. And look, Joe wouldn't say a bad word about Sean at all. Only great things to say about his boss who gave him a chance. But it was conservative. It was, okay, let's play some keep away here where maybe you don't take those shots that they would take now. And I think defensively is where you're going to see the big changes. Like they want some deception, some disguise. It was way too stagnant and predictable each January. We've rattled off the stats more times than I can count, Mike. But look, remember in those interviews, they had coach from Jacksonville in there. They had a coach from Denver in there. And I think it opened up the Bills' eyes to hear some of these coaches point out, yeah, we kind of knew what was going on there defensively. So when Joe had his interview, you know, he made it clear to Brandon Beane, to Terry Pagula, everybody in there, look, what gives me fits is when I'm up in that booth and I can't talk to Josh anymore when it hits 15 seconds on that play clock. He's out there by himself, and all of a sudden the safety's doing this and the linebacker's doing that, and I'm just hoping Josh sees the same thing. He wants to bring that element to the defense, so that's why they bring in Jim Leonard. Now, you don't want to go full Rex, full Rob Ryan, where players are running on and off the field and it's absolute total dysfunctional chaos. So there's got to be a balance there with an old Rex disciple. But I think they have to create some confusion, so that will be the difference on that side of the ball. And look, that's kind of always been Joe too. Like back to William and Mary, so he goes to that convention in Tennessee. Nobody wants him. Like no coach is even giving him a shot. He's quote unquote depressed. Like, am I even going to coach at all? When he returns to campus, you know, there's a position that opens up, and Jimmy Laycock's going to look at 3 different candidates. He tells Joe, go home after graduation, get away from this all. He stays at the facility. He writes up scouting reports for every single opponent that William and Mary was going to face that year. Just kind of goes bonkers, like with this detailed plan. They play West Virginia, and he's studying Geno, Stedman Bailey, Tavon Austin film, but he kind of applied his offensive acumen to the defensive, you know, approach, to the defensive scouting reports. And they even talked to some William and Mary, their DC for the story, and said, yeah, like he was able to bring like an outside the box kind of perspective to it all. So I think you're seeing that already in Buffalo. Like he's using his experience as an offense to help the defense, and Lord knows they need that in January.
It'll be, every year is interesting in its own way. This year, a new coach here after 9 years, new coaches in Baltimore and Pittsburgh after pretty much double that length of term from McDermott, Tomlin and John Harbaugh moving on. You know, what do you think, Tyler, of the AFC right now? We've lived in this world where I bet when we talked last offseason, you know, the question was, can anybody unseat the lords, if you will, of each division in the AFC? Turns out they all got beat. Nobody repeated. Kansas City, Houston, Baltimore, and Buffalo all didn't finish first. So is it for you right now? Are we at a point where there are just that many more teams, perhaps including those teams I mentioned? I think certainly in a couple cases at least, who could win it? I think Jacksonville is interesting for this, and maybe there are others that you would take seriously. Chargers as the new kings of the conference, if you will.
God, I want to love the Houston Texans. Like spending some time around that defense. I mean, they are old school, as nasty as it gets. The way they practice and the way they play, it could apply to really any decade in pro football history. But it's like C.J. Stroud had. I lost track of the turnovers he had. I was really surprised. Like, Nick Caserio was as adamant as he was in the off season. Like, CJ's our quarterback. To suggest we'd even entertain a trade is ludicrous. However he put it. I don't know, man. Like, I wouldn't pay him that Tua contract quite yet. You've got to see a little more, and like, it's hard to sustain elite defense year to year. They just paid Will Anderson Jr. today, and he's worth every penny of that. But if they can get competent quarterback play, I think they're in that conversation. But you know what? I just keep coming back to, you got to have that quarterback head coach relationship. It's got to be special, and that was really a big theme in part two of this, like that Brady Allen relationship. I think, you know, more than anything, that is what should get fans excited. Is that finally, you know, they've been together 4 years, 2 months. Joe kind of took it back to the first meeting when he's nervous in there as the quarterback's coach, and Josh Allen cracks a joke. He wouldn't say exactly what the joke was. It involved pass protection and a particular number, and he said, "I'll leave it at that." But over time, I think they got to a place similar to, you know, Dable and Allen, where there's a lot of love there, and we hear about that love often. But I think that he will get on Josh Allen when he has to. Like, they built up that kind of relationship where, look, if he's getting crazy out there, Joe Brady won't be afraid to speak up on the sideline, and he made that clear. So that's important. I feel like it's almost like a marriage, a successful marriage. If there's no friction, healthy friction, like, eventually you're going to have this big blow up, and it was just always a little strange in the past. I know the snow angels and all that, but look, I've been told repeatedly that was kind of a red herring. It was never that great of a relationship between Allen and McDermott. Just very different personalities, right? That's all. And I think they got that finally locked down. That's why he was sitting in these interviews. So more than anything, I think that has you hopeful that, you know, when you get into January, if you've got the most important relationship in sports finally figured out, you've got a shot.
That will be interesting to watch. I always had the same suspicions about Allen and McDermott, but then you would see, I mean, they won almost every week. Then you would see certain signs that it was going well, or they were tight, if you will. And I know I would, maybe you too, I would always hear about that. Like, yeah, I know, but it just doesn't always look like that. And, you know, it's a professional relationship, and we'll see how it sounds and looks between Brady and Allen. Last thing, I should have mentioned New England in that other question, Tyler. They did win the AFC. Are you taking them seriously as a force going forward?
I get it. They had the easy schedule last year, and it fell apart in such spectacular fashion with the 6 3-and-outs and total ineptitude. Like, I get why everybody's kind of cooling on the Patriots, but I mean, holy hell, Drake May is legit. I mean, he was unbelievable through that regular season. There's a reason that it was one of the closest MVP votes ever. So as long as he's healthy and he's ascending and he's growing, and they'll probably get A.J. Brown. At least they're the leading candidate. We would think. I mean, they've got the money. Players are going to want to go play with Drake May. They're not going anywhere. Wouldn't you love to be a fly on the wall though at Patriot Place? Like, Mike Vrabel, can you really not bring that up to anybody? Like, you stress the importance of family and togetherness and authenticity and trust. I mean, I did a big story on it last year. Yeah. I mean, he's telling guys, he told the equipment staff, don't pick up the dirty washcloths in the shower if they're on the ground. Like, just wring them out and make players wash themselves with dirty washcloths. If you're that kind of coach, like, can you just pretend like this didn't happen at all? I don't think so.
Yeah. Travion Henderson still out here tweeting Bible verses. So, I don't know. Interesting dynamics there. Well, we'll talk about it as the offseason plays out. GoLongTD.com. Anything else quickly, Tyler, you want to promote from the site?
No, thanks to everybody for making their way over. We've got the two-parter on Joe Brady live, and very, very long. So appreciate everybody kind of taking the time to dig into his rise and know, why this thing could work. I mean, I came away thinking like, yeah, I absolutely see why they went this direction. It is a contrast, and you know, we've got the draft around the corner too. So Bob McGinn's 12-part series talking to scouts all over the country is there as well if you want to learn about these prospects. You talk about how long the piece is, by the way. I mean this as a compliment. It's your brand. I was interviewed by, I think you'd like this. I was interviewed this week by the Wall Street Journal
for a Sabres piece that might have come out on Wednesday or Thursday. And the woman who interviewed me said, I'll send you a link in the morning. Thanks a lot. We talked for 20 minutes. And I got the article, and it was short, and I wasn't in it. Cutting room floor. So I was thinking, like, that's never happened to me that I remember. And as a reporter, I talked to Tim Graham, who's in here most days now. I'm like, would you ever do that? Would you interview somebody and then just not use it? Because I would have felt back in my days of doing that job, at least I'd want to tell them if I weren't going to use any of their contributions. But that did not happen. And so I was even telling some friends, like Wall Street Journal. And then the article comes out, and there's a quote from Yarmo and one from Pete Gwelly. Like, I didn't make it. And I'm thinking, to the point about how lengthy your pieces tend to be, you don't even have to edit this. I mean, it's online. Just leave me in there for one sentence, maybe. Why do you even have to edit the piece? But I don't know.
Did you follow up with an explanation at all?
I felt like I had to find out. So, I mean, I'm not a subscriber. So I emailed her back and said, in a certain way, is there something I'm missing? Like, is there a side piece or like a sidebar piece or something? And she's like, no, our editor cut it out. So, I mean, again, I had 20 minutes of quotes. Anyway, would you ever do that? Would you? I mean, probably it happens that you talk to somebody and you really can't use what they tell you, but that would be.
Yeah, it definitely does kind of bring me back to, at times working for Bleacher Report or other places where you might turn in something. Guilty as charged. What I write tends to be a little long, but things get chopped, and you didn't want them to get chopped, and that's the beauty of running your own shop. I
Yes.
suppose.
Yes.
No, for better or worse, the reins are not getting yanked on me here.
That's right. Tyler, thanks for your time as always. Enjoy your weekend.
Hey, thanks so much, Mike. Appreciate you.
Okay. Likewise. Tyler Dunn, golongtd.com. Yeah, I have to admit, kind of like I was vain about it. I'm excited to be in the Wall Street Journal, and I just wasn't. I don't know. I don't have to be interesting, right? I mean, maybe I just didn't deserve it, but I thought it was weird. Anyway, 803-0550 for your calls. You want to talk about the Sabres' chances? Here's the window. I've got two great guests next hour on the playoffs. Kevin Oklubja from Rochester, and then EJ Raddick from NHL Network. Lines are open now. This is Mike Schopp on WGR.
It'll be 7:30 on Sunday. That is when the Buffalo Sabres will take on the Boston Bruins for Game 1. We'll have pregame coverage on Sunday starting at noon. And for the latest leading up to Game 1, Paul Hamilton will have pieces up at our website, WGR550.com. And the other Sunday matchups, 3 p.m. Colorado is hosting the Kings, 5:45 Montreal is at Tampa, and at 10 Utah at Las Vegas. While tomorrow, the playoffs will actually get underway with 3 games, 3 p.m. Ottawa at Carolina, 5:30 Dallas hosting Minnesota, and then at 8 it's the Flyers at Pittsburgh. In the NFL, a very big extension for Will Anderson. He inks a 3-year, $150 million deal with the Texans. $134 million of that is guaranteed, and this now does give Anderson the highest non-quarterback contract in NFL history. And in baseball, doubleheader today for the Bisons. They are at Rochester. Game 1 is underway. The Bisons are up 3-0 in the second. You can listen to that game and Game 2 over on our sister station, the Bet 1520. And then in basketball tonight, it's the final play-in games. The winners get the 8 seeds. 7:30, Orlando hosts Charlotte, and at 10, the Warriors are at Phoenix. Both of these are on Amazon Prime. That's Paddock Chevrolet Sports Headlines. Paddock Chevrolet with you for the extra mile since 1935. I'm Zach Jones for Western New York's Voice of the Fan, WGR.
Victor Arvidsson has really been a gem for them. You know, they got him for a 5th-round pick for Edmonton, who just kind of wanted to salary dump him after he didn't do much there last year, and he has really rediscovered his game. He's been a huge part of their second line. Marcus Sturm called him the engine of that second line with Pavel Zacha and former Sabre Casey Middlestad, who has also kind of had a resurgence here. You know, he's not at a 60-point level, but he's been a really solid winger for the Bruins, and moving to the wing has been part of that for him.
WEEI in Boston analyst Scott McLaughlin on with our morning show today. I'm going to invoke the Bulldog corollary on Middlestat directly, which is if he's your second line, if he's on your second line, you're not beating this Sabres team. I'm not even sure if he is on the second line, but you get the gist of it. Nothing, mean-spirited or anything. The Sabres had Casey Middlestat up top for years, I think, I would say. Didn't get him anywhere, and that's not like it was all his fault. Oh, the names of the players through the years that never got a taste of the playoffs as a Sabre. Quintessentially, Rasmus Ristolainen, who is going to the playoffs for the first time this season as a member of the Flyers. And that came out of nowhere. Seemed like probably a pretty safe bet for most of the season that Philadelphia would miss. But they don't in the end. So Ristolainen gets a taste of it. Good for him. Speaking of it not being mean-spirited or personal, but he was the guy for me for years that I think had more to do with the Sabres' failures than any other player. And, that's kind of how that goes because he played big minutes, maybe the most minutes for years, probably did on the team. And, you have to be pretty good to earn that. But he was always given more credit as a player than the numbers, by far, than the numbers told you that he deserved. And the Sabres basically, I think mostly treated it like they didn't care about the numbers. They didn't respect it. They saw him as an important core piece. And, relatively speaking, I think it was proven he was dragging them down. Good face, good name, tall. So, easy to like him, but he wasn't helping. And now at least, good for him that he gets a taste of the playoffs because you shouldn't have to go as a fan or as a player 13, 14, 15 years without a taste of the playoffs. Cannot wait. Next hour, Kevin Oklubja, and then later EJ Radick from NHL Network talking about the series and the postseason. 803-0550 is the number here if you want to do the same with me now. Bulldog is away until Tuesday, so he'll be back for Game 2. He'll miss one game, and I think he'll be able to watch it from where he is, which would not have happened or been possible had the game been on Saturday afternoon. But Sunday night will work. Sunday night, Tuesday night, 7:30 in both cases. happens. Then Thursday in Boston, Thursday evening, of course, and then Sunday afternoon the following week for Game 4. That's 2 o'clock, Game 4, Sunday afternoon next week in Boston. Bring it on. Lines are open. Again, we'll do more hockey as we go, and maybe we'll get a call or two in here before 5 o'clock. One football story today that I saw, a couple, let me give you two. One involving the Bills, I suppose. That's that they were present at the workout today for Jordan Tyson, wide receiver, Arizona State. And there were 20 teams there, I believe I read, the Bills being one. And I guess, there's probably a lot of different factors that go into, which workouts, which pro days you go to, or which ones you skip. Could be other players. Who knows? You print money, so you can go to all of them if you want. You've got 1 million people working there and can afford anything. So go to every one or whatever you're allowed to go to. Tyson, I think it would be really surprising if he got even out of the top half of the first round conservatively. There are different issues with the different wide receivers, except for maybe Carnell Tate. Could be size, could be injuries, different things that might be turnoffs to teams. But interesting, I suppose, that the Bills were there to see him. Maybe they have something in mind moving up. Maybe they just want to be there just in case. I don't know. Doesn't seem likely that he would make it to 26. But I'm not willing to rule that out. You just have different flavors of receivers this year. And except for maybe Tate, nobody who is just sort of like perfect across the board. He's not perfect, but just like he's maybe a safer bet, top to mid first round than the others. Concepcion, talking yesterday on our pre-draft special, and I'm thinking about when Sneaky Joe was in here, and I brought his name up, and Joe said, I just can't believe he makes it to 26. And like, what don't people like about him? He does this. I still see him, though, in mock drafts going 26 or later. So there's something, whether it's drops or there's something that not everybody is excited about. So, yeah, I think it'll be kind of maybe a little bit wild in the first round Thursday night for receivers. And one more point, Hayden Winks from Underdog has a graphic on his Twitter you can find, which is everybody by position and then also by tier through the first 3 rounds, top 100 players. And he's got 15 receivers on his chart. So maybe 15, I don't know, that seems high for thinking of teams and needs. But 15 receivers that he thinks are worthy of either day 1 or day 2. And if he's right or not right or wrong, if the Bills feel likewise, they got to get into the second round or another third round pick, trade down, use that first to do that, and buy your wide receiver there, especially if you can't get to Concepcion or Tyson or whoever it is you think might be, great value at 26. Maybe it has to wait until they're on the clock. But it just seems like really obvious that that's the move with their not having a second. If you're drafting late first, there's nobody that's super perfect as a prospect there. That's what I would do. Maybe easier said than done. Well, most things are easier said than done. But if they can pull off a trade like that, I think they should want to. And Arizona, yesterday this came up a couple of times, is an interesting possible partner as they might want to get to Ty Simpson, the Alabama quarterback. And there's more speculation about that today because there's a story about Jacoby Brissett wanting a new contract. The presumptive starter, I guess, in Arizona as we talk before the draft. And he's not set up to make that much money for a starting quarterback, not even close. So, of course, he wants that. He didn't show up reportedly for the start of their voluntary stuff. And I guess that is feeding more speculation that the Cardinals will draft somebody and maybe even start him. I mean, Kyler Murray has moved on to Minnesota, so there could be that possibility. Let's go to Tim here. Hi, Tim.
Hey, man. Turn my radio down. you just mentioned the fact that you were a wedding in Rochester when during the Sabres game in the Stanley Cup, and I was at the same wedding.
Oh,
and there was a bunch of us that found a room off of the reception to watch the game. And I thought about that for years, and then you just mentioned it. I think we were probably at the same wedding. You were at the Democrat and Chronicle at the time, and there was a wedding of somebody in the media.
Yep.
And I just thought that was cool. That
it was at the Eastman House, I think.
Yeah, exactly. And his wife worked with my wife, and I protested that why would anybody get married during Stanley Cup? And
well, you know, Bulldog
you
got married that night too.
Oh, did he really?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, it was in Rochester, and my wife and the bride were pals. But a bunch of us found this little room off to the side, and it was a small little room at the reception, and there was like 12 guys in there, all happy to find some rabbit ears and a TV. So
yeah, interesting.
Anyway, I just hopped in the sled and heard you say that, and I'm like, damn, I was there. That's my brush with greatness.
Please, thank you, Tim. Yeah, I remember that being during the day, and not that it bumped up against the hockey game, but maybe I left early so I could get to the hockey game. And just, like I was going to have to leave the arena before the game ended, almost, to be able to make the flight to Dallas. And I had that in my head. This is the last overtime I can watch. And then the quote goal goes in. And so, no Dallas. Still never been there. Maybe for the finals. Maybe this year for the finals. 27 years later, I'll go. Who knows? Kevin Aklubja, speaking of those years, I worked with Kevin at the DNC in Rochester for several years, and he'll join me at 5 to set up Sabres Bruins and talk about basically how many of these Sabres are players, just like in 06, who came up through Rochester, several. And Kevin always has a unique perspective on kind of the younger element of the Sabres roster. EJ Radick as well next hour. Game 1 is Sunday night, 7:30, Bruins at Sabres. Mike Schopp here. Happy Friday. This is WGR.
We've been living in sin so long, all the fields are gone. Fella stopped me on the street last night, said everything's alright. Roller coaster, make it through the day upright. It seems your meal ticket is gone, but life goes on. I could never imagine something better. Yeah, right. Now you're cooking on high heat in the middle of the street. Roller coaster, take me to a better time. Let's go. All sing your high line with the roller coaster of life. It's time to all choose your timeline on the roller coaster of life. You seem to easily forget how to place your bet. When everyday life gets you down, you gotta steal the crown. Got to own it. Don't bitch and moan about it, please. God forbid you scrape your knees, and it's nothing to sneeze at. Oh, I've told you over and over again. You gotta get both hands around it and make your own plans. Roller coaster, it's taking over. It's about time. Oh, all sing your high line on the roller coaster of life. You've got to all choose your timeline with the roller coaster of life. Roller coaster. I want to go down the rabbit hole, down the rabbit
Welcome back. Mike Schopp here. Bulldog is off today. He'll be back on Tuesday from a exciting-sounding trip, albeit a kind of short one to go so far, but got to do what you got to do. Zach is with me, and Zach, I know you to be an Angels fan, and I was sad to see that Garrett Anderson died. You're probably old enough to remember him.
Yes, a little bit, but yes.
He played there a long time. I'm not sure he played for anybody else, Anderson. But he and that 0-2 Angels team, if you care to know, have a soft spot in my heart. I was not an Angels fan per se, but, and I'm sure there's at least one person listening who remembers this just as fondly as I do, we would go out, 3 or 4 of us, almost every night, not being able to watch the West Coast games from our respective apartments, like they wouldn't have been on cable or anything, but at a sports bar you could. And we were getting in the habit of betting the Angels in the over. It's remembered to us as Angels in the over. You have Angels in the outfield. This is Angels and the over. And we would go out, like, it came to feel like all the time to watch the 0-2 Angels and bet that offshore. So, what, illegally? And it was hilarious because it felt like we would only ever win. And then I would leave the bar to run across the street to the ATM and take money out and pay them. Like, I didn't really need to do that because I don't know how often I ever took money out of the account. But, you know, $20, Angels in the over. Great. 3 or 4 of us do it. Watch the game. Ends at 1 a.m. They win. Go back to the bar. Here's your money. That happened like over and over that one particular summer, right when I started working here with a coworker who was involved. And so then we got into the Angels, and they go to the World Series, and it's Game 7, and I bailed.
Ooh.
I didn't feel it.
Ooh.
Maybe it was even Game 6.
It may be game 6.
5-0 down?
Yeah,
it might have been Game 6. Because Game 7 was a low-scoring game, 4-1. Anderson had the big hit in Game 7, 3-run double. But Game 6 was, we were at a bowling alley instead for Game 6. Had to be together. It was the Angels. It was our Angels. And I'm like, guys, I'm going against the grain here. I'm betting the don't on a craps table. I'm betting the Giants. I just didn't. I thought they were dead.
Oof.
They got down 5-0 and won. And my guys, they were so vindicated. They were they were mad at me, and they were right to be. I bailed on the team. In Game 7, I don't even know. The streak was broken. But that was a 4-1 win in Game 7. So You're how old?
I am at that point 3 or 4 years old.
Okay, so you don't remember the series.
No, I remember my dad also bailing on Game 6. He went to bed. He woke up the next morning and went, "Oh my God, we're still alive. We're still here."
He's the reason you're a fan.
And he's the reason, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I guess I have to say I regret it. Because I lost. I mean,
that's the key of it. Yeah, you lost.
That's the reason I regret it. I lost the bet. I was the kingpin of the group. And then I went and bet the Giants Game 6. You can't do that. Just don't bet the game. Pass. Skip it. Get the next one. Oh, well. Garrett Anderson, nice player for a long time. Hate to hear about that news. Kevin Aklubja on the Sabres and the Bruins next.
for Game 1, but we do know when it will be. The Buffalo Sabres will take on the Boston Bruins Sunday at 7:30. Our pregame coverage on Sunday will begin at noon, and for the latest, leading up to Game 1 of the series, Paul Hamilton will have pieces up at our website, WGR550.com. The other Sunday matchups, 3 p.m., Colorado hosting the Kings, 5:45, Montreal is at Tampa, and at 10, Utah at Las Vegas. Well, tomorrow, we'll get the playoffs underway with 3 games. 3 p.m., we'll start it again, Ottawa at Carolina, 5:30, Dallas hosting Minnesota, and at 8, the Flyers are at Pittsburgh. In the NFL, big extension for Will Anderson. He inks a 3-year, $150 million contract with Houston. $134 million of that is guaranteed, and now gives Anderson the highest non-quarterback contract in NFL history. And in baseball, doubleheader today for the Bisons at Rochester. Game 1 sees the Bisons up 3-1 in the third. You can listen to both games over on our sister station, the Bet 1520. The Mets go down 12-4 to the Cubs, and then coming up later this afternoon, the Yankees host the Royals at 7:05, and out west, the Jays, they take on the Diamondbacks at 9:40. And for some playoff action tonight in basketball, it's the final play-in games. The winners do get the 8 seeds. 7:30, Orlando hosts Charlotte, and at 10, the Warriors are at Phoenix. Both of these games, like with all of the play-in games, will be on Amazon Prime. That's your Paddock Chevrolet Sports Update. Paddock Chevrolet with you for the extra mile since 1935. I'm Zach Jones from Western New York's Voice of the Fan, WGR.
It's Mike Schopp
We were having a very serious conversation about mayonnaise here.
and the Bulldog
And don't even talk to me about weed.
on WGR Sports Radio 550.
Welcome back. Happy Friday. I'm excited to talk to Kevin O'Klubja here about the Sabres-Bruins series and the NHL playoffs. Old friend of mine from our DNC days in Rochester. And it is my failure. I'm not going to blame Bulldog for this because it wouldn't be fair. It is my failure to not have bugged Kevin, at least tried to book him once during the season. But we're happy to have him now, right before the playoffs start. I guess it's the best possible timing. Very exciting times here, Kevin. How's life?
Life is fine, and it's Usually you're calling this year to talk some Hammered playoffs, and they're well into their playoffs. But now the big teams gets to enjoy.
I guess we could do that too, right?
Well, the Hammers aren't in yet. I mean, they need a point in their last 3 games. I think it's a foregone conclusion, but they should get that point, or Utica should lose a point. So I mean, they'll get in, but to predict or to say they will go very far would be, I don't know, more of a dream than it would be a reality.
Okay. Well,
they're a decent team, but they're not. They're just not. They're not what they were the last few years, and they put together some nice runs. They didn't win a Calder Cup. They did make the conference finals one year, but they've at least established that the playoffs are again something that happens often here, and there's been a good pipeline of young talent. So in that regard, they've sort of restored tradition.
I will want to ask you about the Sabres' chances of doing that thing here as we talk, but the first question for you has to be, like it really I want it to be for everybody that we hook up with during this Sabres experience here, Kevin. How surprised are you that this happened?
I got to admit, in one way you think of it and you go, how is it possible in the way the playoffs are set up in the format? Like, how could any team miss the playoffs for 14 years? That's not possible.
Right.
You wouldn't think. And it wasn't possible till this franchise was able to do it. But, watching the first few months, it was sort of, well, maybe they can get things rolling. I just don't quite understand what happened. Like, I know they changed GMs, but a lot of this team is what Kevin built. It's weird, and I think Lindy had said in a post game, and it's been brought up. They went on that West Coast trip, and they're in Alberta, and it was noticeable. Like, guys they got back, they were busting to get back and play defense, and they blocked shots, and there was just so much more desperation than was usually seen. And they blew a lead, but they would come back. They ended up winning in overtime, and that road trip continues, and they keep winning, and I don't know. I mean, I don't know if it was just they all of a sudden realized, maybe we are pretty good. But something clicked, because ever since then they've just been one of the best teams in the NHL record-wise. And it's hard to argue that they aren't one of the best teams.
It's been so much fun to watch and to talk about. And to talk about it takes a while to try to make sense of it, to try to explain what may have happened. I mean, it would vary person to person, player to player, but I think a lot of things are true. And from my perspective about, all of this, starting with what you said, and effort and desperation, the top players in this organization, Kevin, were two things. One, they were good themselves individually. Darlene Thompson, like that. The top of the lineup is pretty strong, talent-wise. And the other, except for Tuck, everybody was like sort of locked down here. Where were you going? You could pout and maybe talk your way into a trade or something. We've had plenty of that through this drought. But as much as it is narrative-driven, sometimes there's truth in it. And you win a few games, and you start to look around like, we're not going anywhere. We got more than half the season left. We might as well dig in. And, I mean, then you win 10 straight, and you're right in the mix, and you don't have to reflect on or listen to how bad you've been or anything negative like that. You start to win people over. So I think a lot probably went into it, but some of it, maybe a lot of it is just mental and effort related.
Yeah, and maybe part of it is just, let's, I don't know if anybody really ever had to say it. Maybe they did. Maybe it was out after a game or on the way to whatever. But somewhere they said, we're not that bad. Why don't we just, let's just prove to the world that we are a pretty good team here. And the Tampa game with all the brawls a month ago, that was, to me, there were so many times in that game, they had the big lead and all of a sudden they're behind. It's like, okay, well, now they're back to reality. I can imagine people were saying that, but yet every time they managed to tie it, go back ahead, and end up winning, and they make another statement game against Tampa, and yet you look at the DraftKings odds or whoever, and Tampa's like the third favorite team, and the Sabres, nobody gives them much of a chance. And I think it was TJ Oshie or somebody was talking about, if there's going to be an upset in the first round, who could it be? Well, Boston probably has the best chance. So they still aren't really getting that respect from nationally that maybe you would expect them to have earned.
No doubt that win over the Lightning, Kevin, was the highlight of the season for a single game. And I think as we're talking this through, they'd already become a team that probably felt like it could make the playoffs or even definitely would make the playoffs. And then, maybe sky's the limit. But maybe that is the day where they realized they could beat out Tampa. They beat them head to head. They went to Tampa and beat them before that game, and then later they would beat them again. And whether it's about the Lightning or not, first place becomes more and more realistic. And to whatever extent that was a goal, I mean, of course, they got there. So how do you see it going? Maybe they're still lacking a certain respect, like you said, but you sound like you wouldn't be surprised if they went deep.
Maybe that works in their favor. I mean, yes, they're good, and people know that, but maybe there still is that rallying cry in the room, and Lindy can use that as motivation if he wants. I mean, there probably is some of that, and whatever it takes. I think the biggest the most important things happened at the trade deadline when they got bigger and stronger. And again, I'm referencing TJ Oshie. He's on last night with Scott Van Pelt, and he's talking about the playoffs and how different it becomes and why it's so tough, maybe for the President's Trophy winner to advance in the playoffs. And only three in the last 25 years or something have ended up winning the Stanley Cup. But teams have it wrapped up, but they coast a little bit down the stretch, and all of a sudden the playoffs begin, and just every hit, there's so much more ferocity than there is in the regular season. And it's not when you're on the boards, it's when you're near the boards you're going to get hit, and then you get punched in the face. And then the Sabres addressed that, though. They added some size, and now they have some depth, and they have a lot of guys who aren't used to playing that way. And I thought and said often the last couple of years, well, even if they did make the playoffs, where were they going to go? They weren't built for it, and I couldn't imagine them playing in the type of series that Tampa and Florida played.
Mm-hmm.
Now you can, and I'm just kind of anxious to see how that does go. I'm sure, Boston is going to bring the physicality to a level the Sabres haven't seen for a long time, and I think the Sabres can match it.
Yeah, we've seen them be willing to do that and also be able to do it.
I'm not talking about fighting, but I'm just talking about every hit
Mm-hmm.
and puck going to the corner, and every time the puck's dumped in, whatever it is, there's a hit. And it's just how the playoffs have become, and that's what the standard must be in the eyes of everyone for a team to advance. And, whoever's left standing at the end is usually the winner.
Longtime hockey writer in Rochester, Kevin O'Klubja, my guest. Bulldog is off today. I'm Mike Schopp, and this is WGR. Well, to hone in on that piece, the deadline was what? They bring in Logan Stanley and also Luke Schenn. Stanley's been a regular so far. Schenn is a depth piece, it would seem. Zach Metza became somewhat of a talking point here because he had this insane season where they never got scored on when he was on the ice. And then after the deadline, shortly after the deadline, he's back in Rochester. He's been in and out of the Sabres lineup since. You sound like, you're on board with the Sabres getting bigger, what they did at the deadline. Can Metza fit into that? Is it Timmins instead? What would you do?
I think Metza's the depth person, and if there is an injury, if somebody can't go, then I think, they turn to him. But, right now I do see it more of what they've been going with recently. Maybe that's testing, if that's the lineup they want to use. But I kind of sense he would be the number 7. Depending on what's happening.
Mm-hmm. How about the guys who've come through Rochester?
And that's a view from afar. I mean, I'm not in Buffalo watching practice anymore,
Sure.
and skates, but I mean, that's kind of what I sense.
Yes. There is a piece of this roster that came through Rochester. They've been the Sabres, famously just always sort of rebuilding and young, trying to get a pipeline going. Kulik, so prominent in that, has not been around for almost the entire season with his health issue. Roseanne, not really. And then, there are trades. So it's different from 2006 when such a big part of the Sabres' success was players who had just been with the Amherst. You've got a little bit of that here, though.
Yeah, and in that 04-05 lockout, that group grew together and became the foundation of those Sabres teams with Miller and Pominville and Vanek and Roy and players like that. But yeah, it's been good. The pipeline has been good, and there's players that I don't think people envision Josh Dunn being an NHL player, but he has a great year here last year. Shows what he is, then has a great camp, and all of a sudden Lindy says, yeah, I like this guy. And then he's not a regular in the lineup, but he's another one of those guys who fits in and he plays a playoff style kind of every night of the season. So if there's an injury and if they, if maybe that's a direction, they can go. But I got to tell you, it's very confusing. Josh Doe, Josh Dunn. Like, wait a minute, who was that?
You struggle with that?
You're not watching necessarily, and you just have it on in the background, and you turn and go, wait, who is no? So anyway.
Yes. What about Ostlund for you? He might not be physically ready by Sunday, but Bulldog thinks he's a big piece if he's healthy.
I just think he doesn't fit the mold of the necessarily that playoff type player. He's not a big guy, but probably maybe 3 weeks into seeing him play last year, it was very evident just how smart he is. Like, he's so smart, and he's seemingly always where he needs to be, and has a really good just anticipation and sixth sense of, all right, well, this guy's going here, and that's where the puck's going to. I think the guy's really good. I'm very, very impressed with his not just his talent, but his ability to understand what's happening.
Hope to see him back.
What will happen?
Did Benson ever get to Rochester for a stretch?
He did not.
Never. Okay.
And I couldn't figure. I'll be honest. I couldn't figure out why. It's like, this is one of those guys who probably should have been here in the beginning, rather than. He did.
He couldn't be, right?
I contend he scored the greatest first career goal of anyone in NHL history. But he's a player now.
He's
not
player.
Probably going to ever score 30, but maybe he will. But man, his contributions, they're pretty considerable.
Man, that goal against Dallas, Kevin, I mean, it was a meaningless game, but shorthanded, breaks in, gets taken out, gets wrecked on the boards. Fans start to boo a little bit, wanting a call, gets up, last man back, but he's busting it. Puck pops out, right back the other way and alone and scores. I mean, like doing Herbie's with the game happening. Benson,
Yeah.
super cool. I mean, I love watching him.
Yeah, and he's not afraid of anyone, and he's always got his nose in somebody's face and in the crease and in the he adds an element that again the opposition doesn't ever like, but and he's not Marchand, but he's got some of those qualities. He's maybe trending in that direction. In a couple of years, he might be more of that.
For sure. Kevin, how about Hellenius, who's down there? I was disappointed to see him sent down. I mean, they only have so much room. It's already 6 or 7 extras here to begin with. What do you think of him as a player?
I like him. I haven't totally figured out what he'll be in the NHL. Like, I don't know if he's necessarily top 6, but I'm not sure he's bottom 6. Is there like a middle 6?
There should be.
Middle 3, something. I mean, he's kind of. I can see him in that type of spot. Second line, third line. He's feisty. He's got an edge to him. He'll go at someone, but he also, again, very good vision of the ice, smart with the puck, probably more of a passer than he is a scorer, but since Roseanne left, he's understood somebody has to score goals for this team, and he's kind of picked that up. But I think he's, still, did he turn 20 today, yesterday, next week? I mean, he's on the verge of turning 20 and has scored more points than any teenager in Amherst history this year. So he's done some things that haven't been done here.
Who had that record?
Joseph Tierney in 92-93.
Okay.
Had 55 or 57 points, 52. He played on Jody's line for a good part of that year, and that team did go to the Calder Cup finals.
Is he from Czechia? Cierny? Tierney?
Well,
something like
that. At that time, he was from the Czech Republic. I'm not sure which part he was from and how it's divided now.
Remember the name a little
He
bit.
did come back. I thought it very interesting for someone who spent a year here and then played in maybe San Diego or Edmonton. He got traded to Edmonton. I thought it was interesting when the Pulas came back, and remember they bought the franchise, and both they invited anyone back to start the year that wanted to come back that played, and Joseph Tierney said, "Yeah, I'd love to come back." So
nice.
There he is from the Czech Republic, showing up in Rochester for a little reunion.
Couple minutes left with Kevin Oklubja. What do you think of Luukkonen's chances of getting it done here? I mean, goalies, at the risk of sounding like I'm copping out on it, I never want to try to predict it. I don't. In a betting sense, I'd rather bet against the teams that are thought to have the better goalie. It's so close, and there's so much randomness in it. Do you trust Luukkonen to hold up, to rise to this occasion?
Oh, that's a good question. To me, that is the unknown. I didn't know where he stood coming into the year. I've been impressed with how he's developed, how he's played, and the confidence. But I don't know. That's having never seen a goalie in Buffalo in a playoff situation, it really is the unknown factor. So that's I guess I would tending, if somebody said here's $50, go to Del Lago or go to whatever your sports book have, if you have an app or whatever. I'd probably take the Bruins, and because of the goaltending. But I do think the Sabres will win the series, but the goaltending is an interesting part of the equation.
Yeah, you disagree with me maybe just in sort of like
that
philosophy.
Algebra. I hated algebra in school. I've never used algebra ever since that I know of. But, this is that somewhere that X and Y, but somewhere it's part of that equation that I don't have an answer.
There's an axis. There are lines. There's a spreadsheet. There's a Z. There's a pie chart, maybe.
All I know is they told me there'd be no math, so I said, okay, I'll write.
So you're saying you do like the Sabres in the series, right? In the end, there you did say that.
I do. I think it'll be close. I mean, I think the Bruins will give them a battle, but I do like the way they're playing. Every time I think they've slipped, every time I think, oh, okay, they're back to reality.
Right.
This is the reality for what it seems. So.
Yeah, that's been the challenge, if it's that, this season, to try to decide whether to buy into it. But they were 11-18 and finished 50-32, putting the losses together. What is that? 39-14. Several of those losses coming in overtime as well. So hard to argue with the results. If you thought about it, what kind of playoff do you see? Upsets? Not really.
To some degree. It's so. I mean, you come. I think people come to expect upsets in hockey. I just think it's the norm. I don't like the playoff format. I really don't. I don't know. Now, it was easier to argue that Wild should not be playing the Stars in the first round a month ago. The way the Wild finished the season, I think they deserve to be playing them. They're more in that fit right now. But, there's teams that you can say, geez, how was that the matchup in the first round? But I would like the format changed, but maybe they like it. Maybe it's what they want. I don't know.
Would you like 1-16 back?
I'd
versus
like
16?
1-8.
Conference, 1-8.
I'd like 1-8 in each conference. The 1-16 was a weird one. That was odd. You had some matchups that. Somebody in the East playing Vancouver in the West. It was that early first round. That one never made sense to me. But
that was the Sabres once playing the Canucks. Do you have enough pull? Do you have enough pull to help me get my dream to have the top teams pick their opponents in the playoffs through? Do you know somebody? The league sounds very happy with this format, by the way. But that's how they tend to sound about everything.
I shouldn't have said that. Maybe that's how they want it. This is how they want it. This is what
they say.
They apparently like.
Yeah, that's what it is. So there's that. And you can't get Gary Bettman to say anything about his league isn't just what he wants, just what it should be. Never does that. Everything's exactly right, always. That's
a good point. There was a reason for that 04-05 lockout. So I guess, well, there was. But, anyway.
If they went...
It wasn't bad, apparently, for the game, as it turned out. I don't know.
I guess. If they went 1 versus 16 this year, I think there are 4 teams in the West that would make it. Versus 12. Vegas would be like the 16 seed.
Huh.
I know.
I guess I hadn't looked at that in that way.
Yeah.
I'll take a look at it. I'll see how that shakes out.
Washington won 37 games in regulation with 95 points and missed, whereas L.A. won 22 games in regulation and made it. That's fewer than Toronto. So it was extremely one-sided this year in the league, East versus West, to pick out a couple examples.
And there's a lot of teams in the West that aren't that good.
Yes.
Or so we think now. But again, playoffs can be a different animal.
Sure.
Somebody can surprise and get on that run.
Kevin, where are you writing these days?
I am, my real job is still with the Rochester Business Journal. I pretended I knew something about hockey for like 30-some years, and now I pretend I know something about business, and that's even harder to pretend. But I do still do some Amherst and other sports stuff for Pickin' Splinters, the website, pickinsplinters.com.
I'm at
the Amherst now. I was the mayor of Rochester gave Don Stevens the key to the city today, and the Malik Evans and the County Executive Adam Bello proclaimed today Don Stevens Day in Monroe County. So
very nice. Congrats to him, Amherst broadcaster.
Don's getting showered with accolades and awards, and he deserves it.
Including this mention on this show.
That's right. 40 years. 40 years as the Amherst broadcaster.
Pretty good. Long time.
It's kind of like Rick Jennerette. Not quite, but not quite that long. But
Kevin, great to
the same way by Amherst fans.
Great to talk to you again.
You too, Mike. Enjoy the playoff run.
Yes, likewise.
There. I made a prediction. It will be a run.
All
How about that?
Let's hope. Thanks, Kevin. Kevin O'Klubja on the West Shore Hotline. Sabres and Bruins, Game 1 in Buffalo Sunday night. Next, E.J. Radick, NHL Network. I talked to E.J. when? 4 or 6 weeks ago about the Sabres. He said a couple of things that I still remember very well. We'll talk about the first-round matchup and the playoffs some more after the update. This is Mike Schopp on WGR.
We have game time for game number 1 as the Buffalo Sabres will host the Boston Bruins for round 1 of the Stanley Cup playoffs. And game 1 is Sunday at 7:30. Pre-game coverage on Sunday will begin at noon. And for the latest leading up to Sunday, Paul Hamilton will have pieces up at our website, WGR550.com. The other Sunday matchups, 3 p.m., Colorado hosts the Kings. 5:45, Montreal is at Tampa. And then at 10 o'clock, Utah at Las Vegas. While for tomorrow, when the playoffs actually get underway, we'll have 3 games. 3 p.m. again, we'll get the afternoon underway. Ottawa at Carolina. 5:30, Dallas hosts Minnesota. And then at 8 o'clock, the Flyers are at Pittsburgh. Big-time extension in the NFL. Will Anderson inks a 3-year, $150 million deal with the Texans. $134 million of that is guaranteed, and that now gives Anderson the highest non-quarterback contract in NFL history. And then some playoff action tonight in basketball. It's the final play-in games. The winners will get the 8 seeds. 7:30, Orlando hosts Charlotte, and at 10, the Warriors are at Phoenix. And like all of the play-in games, these will be Amazon Prime exclusives. It's Paddock Chevrolet Sports Headlines. Paddock Chevrolet with you for the extra mile since 1935. I'm Zach Jones from Western New York's Voice of the Fan, WGR.
Welcome back, Sabres Bruins Sunday night game 1. No Bulldog today, which means for the second time in 5 or 6 weeks, he's missing out on our next guest. EJ Raddick from NHL Network. You can watch EJ on NHL Tonight, first shift, weekdays at 4 Eastern throughout the playoffs. And EJ, what better time to do that than these days, especially for this long starving hockey market that is now really over the moon. Thanks for joining me.
Hey, my pleasure. It is a great time. It's a great time for every year for hockey fans, but in particular, it is the spectacular April for the fans in Western New York and in Buffalo. I'm so happy to see the Sabres back in the playoffs, and I've been saying for at least the last 2 years that, they have good players. I think we talked about it last time.
Yes.
There's been good players in Buffalo, and, those guys have finally, kind of found their way and just decided, hey, enough losing, because they have the personnel to be better. And, they've made some moves within their organization. They added a sports science guy from USA Hockey. And, I think that was helpful in the day-to-day kind of readiness to play and preparedness to play. So give everybody a lot of credit. They're really happy to see it.
When we talked last time, EJ, one particular way you put this has stuck with me, and I've referred to it many times since. You said that the Sabres had to realize they had to go out every night like it was opening night, that there was maybe a seriousness that was lacking. And because I remember you talking about, I liked the roster last year too, but that piece was missing. So, and they go ahead. I might have lost him there, actually.
There's teams that rebuild and go through, listen, I don't have to tell you, you lived it there 15 years. They've had great players. They've been up and down. They haven't figured it out. Guys have left. They've gone on to win. But, the thing that bothered me particularly the previous 2 seasons, is that the Buffalo Sabres would come, and they'd come to, let's say, Madison Square Garden in New York, and they'd play well because, it's, the Sprite lights of Broadway. And then the next night they might play in Newark, with the Devils, and, it wasn't maybe as appealing as playing on, right in Midtown Manhattan, and they would give half an effort. And I just never really understood that. You haven't won anything as a team in years, and as a franchise, they never won the Stanley Cup. I just think, with a team like that, every day needs to be opening day, practice, games. Every day you need to have that intensity. And I think they've really discovered that this year. And, they got away from struggling on the second of a back-to-back or not putting in a big effort on, those trap games. There's all those games where, you should win that you lose when you're not prepared to play. And so I think they've had a different approach this year, and it's really served them well.
With EJ Raddick, and this is all what we're talking about here, putting it pretty mildly, to go from 11-18 on December 8th to 50, 23, and 9, 50 and 32. I mean, we didn't expect this, though, right?
No, I would say I think it's safe to say you don't expect the team to go from there to win the division, and especially a pretty tough division there with, when you have Tampa playing well this year and, the Montreal Canadiens are resurgent and, in the past, obviously the last couple of years, Florida Stanley Cup champions in that division. Toronto had been a very good team in that division. Both those teams fell off this year. Boston has kind of rebounded. Ottawa's been a good team, but you wouldn't have expected that. But again, I go back to it. Thompson, Norris, McLeod down the middle. 1, 2, 3. You're not going to go very far in the league being better than that. It's not going to be, you're not going to find very many teams that have that kind of layered depth through the middle. And then on the blue line, same thing. Samuelson, Power, Dahlin,
Yep.
and Byron. I mean, like those four guys, two of them are first overall picks. One was a 4, and the other guy, Samuelson, has emerged as a really good player. Again, I might tell you that that's the best top 4 group of defensemen in the National Hockey League. So the talent is there, and, it's just they found their way this year. So we'll see where we go from here now, because, the playoffs are a different animal. And, the fear you would have is, you get into the playoffs. I listened to TJ Oshie last night. I've, on ESPN, I've talked to Wayne Gretzky about it in the past. It goes up a notch or 2 in the playoffs. So this is a team as a group. They haven't had a ton of experience. Very curious to see how it plays out, but they got the talent. If they play to their level, they're going to win that series.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to ask you about next, is the value of experience. I mean, players are always talking about that with respect and taking seriously the experience point. You do have in sports, and I'm not trying to sound like a homer or anything here because I want the Sabres to win, but you do have teams, though, that don't, they're just unfazed by it. And my last guest, Kevin O'Klubja, who you may know, he's been at it a long time, too, in Rochester. He loved what they did at the deadline getting bigger. He sounded like he thought they really needed that. And I'm not sure I agree, but they, as in terms of stature at least, with Logan Stanley for one, they go into this series, bigger than they had been, and maybe that'll serve them well against Boston.
Yeah, Bob Gainey told me years ago you never have enough defensemen, when he was building out his Dallas Stars teams. And it's so true, and I think it's something you see around the league. And they added a couple of defensemen to their group to give them a little bit more depth and give us Lindy Ruff a few more options as to how he wants to deploy those guys and how the series is going to unfold. And is it a more physical series? Is it more of a speed series? It's just nice to have options. And they've got some of those extra options now. We'll see if they even need them. Maybe it's the guys that were there most of the years will be the guys that will be the guys that play, but it's nice to have options. I think if they tried to make the deal for Colton Parayko, I think that if they had their druthers, they would have liked they would have liked Stanley maybe to be a right shot guy. But at the end of the day, this has been a really good team. They have the ability to do it. They're taking a big step now. They're playing against a team that's also, I think, very well coached by Marco Sturm. They got a really good goaltender in Jeremy Swayman. They've got some star power with guys like McAvoy and guys like Pasternak. Their second line this year in Boston has been a really good line for them this year with Pavel Zacha and the guy very well there, Casey Middlestat and Geeky. So, we'll see where it goes in this series. But like I said, I think on paper, to me, if the Buffalo Sabres play the way they can play, I think they'll win the series.
A couple of minutes more with E.J. Radick. What kind of playoffs do you see? Do you see upsets this year? I ask that, carefully because it's always so close, and there aren't many series anymore where it looks like one team is much the best of the two. But, what are a couple thoughts you have on the brackets?
Yeah, I think in the East, I think it's really wide open. I think in the West, I think that, Colorado clearly has been, on paper and in the standings, they've been the best team all year. And that's been wire to wire almost. So I'd be shocked if they were to lose to the LA Kings. I mean, I guess anything's possible, but, they have played very well against the LA Kings as well. So, I think they're going to advance. I think the Edmonton Oilers have positioned them, it's kind of fallen to them playing Anaheim, who has struggled down the stretch, who does not defend well. They've given up the most goals per game of any playoff team. I think it's the third most goals per game of any team in the league. Their penalty killers are 27th in the league. The Oilers have the best power play in the league. Oilers looking to get Draisaitl back in the mix. I mean, I just think it's fallen. That's a nice matchup for the Oilers. So I think that the Avalanche and the Oilers, to me, are prohibitive favorites. After that, those other 6 series, I mean, like I said, I like Buffalo, but I'm not going to discount Boston. They got a goaltending, and, they went into Buffalo a couple weeks ago and won a game. So, we'll see where that goes. I think Carolina, the last 3 years, Carolina got to play a Devils team that was down to their 8th or 9th or 10th defensemen that were missing all kinds of key guys. They won in 5. Surprised they didn't win in 4. The 2 years before that, they got to play an Islanders team that was kind of outmatched. They've got a tough first-round opponent this year in the Ottawa Senators, so that's not going to be any cakewalk for them. That's going to be a challenge. Tampa and Montreal, it's a toss-up. I mean, we're going to wait to see about what's going to happen with Victor Hedman. He has not been playing for Tampa. I'm not so sure he's going to play in the playoffs. They've been okay without him, but he's a big horse not to have. And when you think about Philadelphia and Pittsburgh, that's who knows what's going to happen in that series, because that's a heated rivalry between, in the state of Pennsylvania. Philadelphia has finished the season really well. Their goaltender gives them an advantage in that series. But Pittsburgh's got Crosby and Malkin and Letang and Carlson. And then they got a bunch of guys that everybody kind of wrote off this year, and they've played really well. So I think in the East, you can give me any combination of those teams. In the other 2 Western matchups, you got Dallas and Minnesota. Unfortunately, they have to play in the first round. That's the setup. That's probably going to be a 7-game series. And then, I think, Utah's kind of a wild card. They were a plus 30 as a group this year. That's a pretty good team. Like Buffalo, they haven't been in the playoffs. You wonder how they're going to react against a Vegas team that's finished the season well, albeit against a kind of soft competition. So, I'd say Vegas probably has the advantage there. But, I just think, you guys have been watching it in Buffalo, the fans listening. I mean, the games are always close. Goalies make a difference. Good fortune. If guys are going to get hurt, it's all going to play a part. I think it's going to be an unbelievable first round and a great year of playoffs.
Can't wait. Things get started here Sunday night, in general, Saturday afternoon with the Senators and the Hurricanes. EJ, thanks a lot. We'll be watching.
All right. Thank you very much. I'm hoping to get to Buffalo for some of those games, so good luck to the Sabres.
We'd love to know if you do. Great. Thanks, EJ.
I will let you know.
All right.
All right.
You can watch EJ Radick on NHL Network, NHL Tonight first shift, weekdays at 4 throughout the playoffs. Mike, don't forget about the signs. The wait is over. The Sabres are back in the playoffs. WGR Sports Radio 550 is your home for every moment of the run. Grab your, right here, can you see it? Let's Go Buffalo playoff sign at Lenco Supplies, featuring incredible discounts happening now. And get there with Liberty Cab, your ride on time every time. Quick break, then we'll talk some more. Happy Friday. Thanks for listening. No Bulldog today. This is Mike Schopp on WGR. come the playoffs. Great talking to EJ Radick again, Kevin Oklubja as well this hour. I think by numbers, Utah is interesting against Vegas, and I'm going to want that. Utah, I mean, I know I had to. I think they're interesting against Vegas. I did Andrew Filippone's FanDuel show that airs on Sundays today. We taped it. And he told me his guys like Utah, and I respect Andrew, and I respect his guys, whoever they are. I don't know who they are, but he has guys. He's a guy that has guys. And they like Utah, apparently. And so here's hoping Bulldog gets back and we can say Utah a lot more. I'm hoping for that. I'm not a Vegas fan at all. The Tortorella move. I mean, Eichel. Let's go. Utah Mammoth. I am right down with EJ Radick on the Oilers. It almost seems a little too obvious, that matchup for them. I'll try that. I'll take Minnesota just because I'm going to want a couple of underdog prices. I don't know if I'll bet every series, but when it's even like that, if that's still true between Dallas and Minnesota, I'll probably want the underdog. And I even think maybe L.A., it's such a disparity, Colorado, L.A., but the Kings took 33 of their 82 games to overtime. That's like how they're in the playoffs. They had 20 overtime and shootout losses. I mean, the Sabres had 9. Florida had 4, and they lost a lot. 20. I wonder if they can muck up that series. That's what they'll probably want to do, and steal a couple games. So I'm not sure I want to put U.S. dollars on the Kings, but I don't think it's a given that they lose. I'll play Ottawa against Carolina. Carolina has not been a good playoff team, and Ottawa's good. We sat in here for weeks kind of worried about that being the Sabres' draw. So if that meant anything, tough matchup, but I'll like the underdog there. I don't think I can get to Montreal. Tampa is a bigger favorite in its series than even the Hurricanes are or the Sabres are. At home, I'm just going to trust that they win out. I don't want them to do this, but that they win out against a Canadiens team that just doesn't have the meats, if you will. I think Philadelphia is live. They've had such a good second half, and I wouldn't care about that if it was like 2 weeks, but it's more like 2 months, and they might be a better team than the Penguins as that series starts. And I'm definitely with the Sabres, best for last against Boston. I mean, it comes up in every analysis, and why shouldn't it? But the goaltending point, Luukkonen has been very good. And you can think that he or they will crack under the pressure or not. And I'm just choosing not to think that. You've got guys who played for Olympic medals. Luukkonen was chosen for the games, didn't end up going because of an injury. But I think they'll be up to it. I don't think Boston even is a team that if the Sabres need a minute to get up to playoff speed that can necessarily take advantage of that. They're not lethal in a certain way like the Sabres can be. So, that's my team. I'm going to want them. And maybe that bias is working into my thinking about the series. But I think Boston might be the weakest team in there, at least in the Eastern Conference. And hopefully the Sabres are ready for the challenge. We talked about some of the odds and goal-scoring leaders and more about this series earlier today with Sam Panayotovich from Chicken Dinner with Joe Ostrowski. We'll have that conversation for you next. I'm Mike Schopp, and this is WGR.
Was Thursday, today, yeah, it's Friday.
It's Mike Schopp and the Bulldog.
We so excited, we gonna have a ball today. Tomorrow is Saturday.
I'm itching inside. My liver's all twisted up. But you know what I did? I took Deborah, went to the liquor store. I loaded up with alcohol, more specifically vodka, whiskey, beer, tequila, more beer, more vodka, more whiskey, and more beer.
On WGR Sports Radio 550.
Looking forward to the weekend. Yesterday was Thursday. Today is Friday.
It's Mike Schopp and the Bulldog.
We so excited. We gonna have a ball today. Tomorrow is Saturday.
I'm itching inside. My liver's all twisted up. But you know what I did? I took Deborah, went to the liquor store. I loaded up with alcohol, more specifically vodka, whiskey, beer, tequila, more beer, more vodka, more whiskey, and more beer.
On WGR Sports Radio 550.